Many of you probably don't realize that the basis of this channel lies in my passion for BioWare's wonderful trilogy of games known as Mass Effect. I've spoken about these games before, and I did so with genuine passion. However, that was a long time ago, and no one has ever scrolled back and watched those videos. I'm older now. I'm experienced a lot in the last few years, growing as a person, a writer, and an editor. I've also become far more pretentious, so get ready for that later in the video. The third entry is where my passion truly lies, but to talk about that, we have to talk about where it all started, and that's right here in the first entry. There's plenty you can criticize in the first game, from the vast amount of reused assets that make the game's side content feel dreadfully repetitive, the combat that doesn't really feel like a shooter, and that thing. But man, there's just something in the story that will get you hooting and hollering before it's all said and done, and that's what I really want to talk about today. So we'll get into everything, start to finish. Expect full spoilers here as we dive into BioWare's passion project. This is Mass Effect. You know, I had a whole thing written about the gameplay, but honestly, who really cares? If you play the game, you'll form your own opinion, and if you don't, it's never going to matter to you. It's certainly not the selling point for the game, so let's sum it up as fast as possible. There's shooting, the guns provide essentially no feedback, and as a result, are boring. Even on the highest difficulty, the power usage of your squad is rarely important, but biotics look cool, so there's that. The Mako is adverse to concepts such as physics, and as a result is both very frustrating to drive and has an inescapable charm that means I wouldn't have it any other way. Oh, and the Krogan are absolutely terrifying forces of nature that I'll be seeing in my nightmares for the foreseeable future. I think that about sums it up, actually. On to the story.
This is the most important mission any of us have ever been on. The fate of an entire galaxy is at stake. We will stop Sarah, no matter what the cost.
Well said, Commander. Captain will be proud.
The captain gave up everything so I could have this chance. We can't fail.
Man, I love this story so damn much. Just seeing this intro does it for me every time. You step into the shoes of Commander Shepard, an Alliance soldier with a past you choose, which only really changes whether or not he's an orphan. You can also choose his military past, whether being a war hero, a ruthless cutthroat of commander, or the sole survivor of a mission gone wrong on the planet Akuz, that people will not stop bringing up. I swear, we've seen Batman's parents die less times than Shepard will have to hear about someone bring up the time all his friends died in front of him.
They're always getting dropped into impossible situations, forced to survive unbeatable odds, just like you on Akuz.
Not many could have survived what you went through on Akuz.
I know what happened on Akuz.
Seriously, guys, give it a rest. Anyways, you're now Commander Shepard on a mission to test a new ship called the Normandy under the command of Captain Anderson alongside a Turian Spectre named Nihilus. Spectres are the best of the best, lone operatives who work directly under the Citadel Council, who are essentially the space feds, and are given permission to do just about anything to get the job done. This is a unique situation as the Turians helped build the Normandy, but there's animosity not from the alien, but from the humans. You see, when humans first discovered Mass Effect technology and ventured out into the galaxy, they didn't have the friendliest introduction to alien life, as meeting a Turian patrol would lead to the First Contact War. The war was short-lived, but both sides carried the scars from the battles fought and the lives lost. Most will just feel uneasy around Nihilus or think he's kind of a dick, but Navigator Presley is open with his dislike of Turians, old enough to remember the war, and has a general distrust of aliens in general. A member of your squad by the name of Jenkins, however, just thinks Spectres are cool and hopes for a chance to see some action when they arrive at their destination. Poor guy put on a red shirt without even knowing it. When you head back to see the captain, we'll find Nihilus waiting for us. He comes off as a bit suspicious, but it'll turn out he's on our side. When Anderson comes in, we'll find out what our real mission is. You see, the technology that the universe operates on, known as Mass Effect technology, is derived from those that came before us, known as the Protheans. We're heading to a human colony known as Eden Primed, where a Prothean beacon has been found. These beacons contain the knowledge of the Protheans, and as such are regarded as extremely valuable, so we're heading there to recover the beacon and bring it back to a safer location. Nihilus is with us for more than that, however. Humanity has been pushing for a human to join the Spectres, and Shepard's name has been put forward by our Turian friend here as a potential candidate. Nothing can ever be easy, however, and the mission gets complicated before we even arrive as we receive a message from the planet upon our approach. Nihilus will head out on his own, moving ahead of us as we land on the planet alongside Cade Nalenko, our resident biotic, and Jenkins, the young and excited kid who really just wanted to see some action for the first time in his career and show off the new red shirt he just picked up at the unimportant side character store. Yeah, that didn't take long, did it? Don't worry, it takes us less than 3 minutes to find a replacement for him in the form of Ashley Williams, who we'll talk about later. This is when we'll first encounter the Geth, the group of mysterious machines attacking the colony. Their existence here is confusing for our group as apparently they haven't been seen in over 300 years since they exiled their creators, the Quarians, from their homeworld. They've also apparently found a new hobby that involves sticking humans on giant spikes and turning them into zombie-like creatures known as husks. Push forward and it'll turn out the beacon has been moved from the dig site, so we'll have to go and find it. Before that though, we'll get a cutscene to check in on Nihilus and what he's doing right now. He's caught off guard as he runs into another Turian Spectre by the name of Saren. Unfortunately, while he's relieved to see someone he knows, he doesn't seem to know him well enough. When we return to Shepard, we can take a moment to watch the enormous ship take off, which we'll learn more about later on. Fight into the spaceport and we can find the body of Nihilus and a human hiding behind the crates who tells us the interaction he had with Saren. It's not looking good, but there's nothing to do but push forward in search of the beacon and this Saren guy, who is apparently in charge here and doing something with the beacon before setting demolition charges and taking off. We defuse the charges before finding the beacon ourselves. We call in our location to the Normandy, but when Ashley accidentally activates the beacon, we push her out of the way and are hit with the Prothean Brain Blast ourselves. It knocks out Shepard, who wakes up in the Normandy medbay on the way to the Citadel. Shepard speaks on what the beacon did, burning a vision into his brain of the Protheans being wiped out by a race of sentient machines known only as the Reapers. It was a warning left behind, and now Shepard finds himself burdened with the knowledge of the galaxy's impending doom. We're heading to the Citadel, which is the home of galactic politics, to inform the Council of what has happened on Eden Prime, and man is it cool.
Good timing, Commander. I was just about to bring us into the Citadel. See that taxpayer money at work.
Honestly, one of the best shots in the game, and that gets me every time. The Citadel will have to go down as one of the coolest designs in anything sci-fi ever, especially as we go on to reveal the station's secrets. Anyways, we get to the Council station and head up to the Presidium to bring our report before the Council. Counselor Udina and Captain Anderson are waiting for us and will go in to present what we know. Unfortunately, Saren being one of the Council's top agents and us only providing the word of humans against his word, the Council says that we'll need to provide more proof in order to bring forward charges against him. Shepard isn't deterred, however, and there's leads to be followed. We saw a Turian CSEC agent when we were walking in who was arguing with his boss for more time to find evidence against Saren. Anderson also tells us the banker Bar Levon, who works for the Shadow Broker, a very discreet information broker, who might be able to point us in the right direction. Through his Shadow Broker tip, we'll find Rex, a battle-worn Krogan mercenary who's hunting down Fist, who runs Korra's Den. Finding Garrus leads us to a confrontation with Fist's thugs at the med clinic, who are looking for a Quarian that Dr. Michelle had patched up. All evidence leads us to Fist, so we storm the club and wring the information out of him. As it turns out, he's set up a trap for the Quarian woman and we'll have to run to save her. When we get there, it turns out that Tali may be young and naive, but she isn't stupid, knowing something is wrong and using our distraction to get away safely. Tali reveals that she does in fact have the evidence we're looking for, so we all go back to Udina's office to discuss what she has. She reveals that she's traveling the galaxy on her pilgrimage, a Quarian rite of passage, when she tracked down a Geth patrol and salvaged what she could from its databanks. With the evidence in hand, we head back to talk to the Council yet again, and this time, to their credit, they take us seriously, stripping him of his Spectre status on the spot. The Asari Councilor also recognizes Saren's follower in Matriarch Benezia, explaining that matriarchs are Asari in their final stages of their 1,000-year lifespan, whose power and wisdom is a force to be reckoned with. Apparently, she had a notable following that will likely be joining Saren with her, adding to our problem. Condemning Saren is only the first part of our problem, however. Finding him is quite another, but there's an obvious solution to the problem as the Council have just the group to do such a thing. And having just lost 2 of their best Spectres, there's room to add another to their forces as they recognize Shepard for his accomplishments.
It is the decision of the Council that you be granted all the powers and privileges of the Special Tactics and Reconnaissance Branch of the Citadel.
Spectres are not trained, but chosen. Individuals forged in the fire of service and battle, those whose actions elevate them above the rank and file.
Spectres are an ideal, a symbol, the embodiment of courage, determination, and self-reliance. They are the right hand of the Council, instruments of our will.
Spectres bear a great burden. They are protectors of galactic peace, both our first and last line of defense. The safety of the galaxy is theirs to uphold.
You are the first human Spectre, Commander. This is a great accomplishment for you and your entire species.
Anderson steps down as the captain of the Normandy, handing it off to Shepard as we'll need it in our pursuit of Saren. We're given 3 leads to start with. There's reports of Geth on a colony on the planet Pharos. There's also whispers of them appearing on Novaria with matriarch Benezia. Last up, we're given a vague lead on Benezia's daughter working as a protein researcher in one of several star systems in the Artemis Tau cluster, which is where I recommend we start as she will become our final squad mate and important to the story. We'll locate Liara's dig site on Therum and drop in the Mako, driving there alongside the rivers of lava and occasionally jumping over Geth energy weapons left in the way to slow us down. Eventually, it'll be time to get out again and press forward on foot, where we'll face a tough challenge in the form of Geth stalkers who jam your radar and move at lightning speed around a given arena. This alongside with normal troops, snipers, and a damn Geth armature sending out death via express mail and limited cover, it can take a minute to wipe out everything before we head into the dig site itself. Inside, we find more Geth and one Liara Tassoni trapped in some kind of containment field on the opposite side of a barricade. With a handing mining laser, we get access to the room she's in so we can let her out and discuss why we're here. It appears the mining laser we use set off a chain reaction this places moments from coming down on our heads, so we'll have to beat a swift retreat. Before we can get out, however, the Krogan that is leading the Geth will stand in our way. He's a big obstacle, but we have to move quick and Shepard doesn't beat around the bush.
Surrender. Or don't. That would be more fun.
We don't have time to deal with this idiot. Charge!
I like your attitude.
With that done, there will be a mad dash for the exit as Joker pulls us out of the fire moments before the whole structure collapses. We run through a quick debrief with the team when we get back, catching Liara up on what we're doing here, and she gives us a quick history lesson on the Protheans. Check in with the Council, and then we can head off to our next adventure, which, for me, will be Pharos. This mission will take quite a bit more out of you than Therum, but at least it's more peaceful at the start as the colony sends someone out to meet us.
Past the freighter. Take cover! Hostile contact!
I said it started peaceful, I never said it stayed that way. Fight your way into the colony of Zeus Hope, and we'll find Fidan, who we can talk to about— oh, come on!
Everyone's on edge, sis.
Watch out! We've got Geth in the tower!
It's downright hazardous to have a conversation in this place. After pushing the Geth back, you can head down into the tunnels to help give the colonists a real chance. Clear out the Geth, kill the oversized Alpha Varens so they can hunt the rest of them for food, get the water going again, and scavenge parts so they can get the power back up. It's optional, but should only take you a few minutes of work and they could really use the help. Anyways, hop into the Mako and head out into the Skyway as we travel to the Exogeny headquarters in search of whatever the Geth want there. Before you get inside, you can stop and find a group of survivors and have a little chat with Zhong and Juliana to try to learn a little bit about what the Geth might be after and the whole situation. They give us a bit of info before heading out, and Juliana will ask us to look for her daughter Lisbeth, who's still missing. We actually will find her near the entrance of the facility. She's willing to elaborate on what Saren and the Geth are likely after here on Pharos, the Thorian, which is an ancient plant that the company was studying here. We find out a little bit more from a terminal inside the facility, like the fact that the Thorian is actually hidden under the colony of Zeus Hope. Also, the Thorian is capable of mind control when people inhale its spores. Awesome. It can be pretty challenging fight through Exogeny, as charging Krogan in tight spaces can make for devastating opponents that you'll either have to hammer on quickly or give ground to and chip away at their massive regenerating health bars. Eventually, we find a way to knock the Geth ship off the building with a quick math puzzle which drops the barriers inside and allowing us for communication to the Normandy again. Joker reports that the colonists have gone crazy trying to claw their way into the ship. We find Lisbeth once again on the way out, and we press her for more information on the Thorian since we learned she knew a little bit more than she let on in the beginning. She seems genuine when she tells us she didn't want to see anybody get hurt but was powerless to stop the tests. We stop to see her mom on the way back and have to confront a gun-toting Zhong who you can shoot or just tell to fuck off. It's really not particularly interesting conflict, but what's important is we work with Juliana to cook up a grenade mod that will knock out the colonists without harming them. When we get back to the colony, there will be colonists that need to be saved, but there's also the Thorian creepers. Much like Husks, they come in numbers and can be dangerous if you let them overrun you. These things you can shoot. Move through the colony, gassing the colonists and killing the Thorian creepers. Eventually, we reach the end and find Fidan, seemingly the only one strong enough to ward off the Thorian's control, if only for a moment. He expresses regret for what has happened here with his people, and it's genuinely a moving scene as he fights back against the Thorian, refusing to fire on anything other than his own mind, which is turned against him. Forgive me if I digress here a bit, but I think this is important. We'll get more into it later, but one of the biggest criticisms you'll see about Mass Effect is that the choices don't matter as much as they're made out to, and while I don't entirely disagree, I think there's more than just the choices on screen, and I think it's worth talking about. Fidan is one of the people in this universe that makes it worth fighting for. A good man struggling with impossible odds who was defiant to the end, doing everything in his power to keep those around him safe. He didn't get a happy ending. I suppose you could say he had a choice. He could have done the Thorians' bidding, and who knows, it may have turned out differently for him. But the way I see it, a man like Fidan only ever had one option. He's a fighter and a leader. There was only one way for him. We're going to speak more about Fidan later. Don't forget him. I know I won't. We move down below the colony in search of this plant that has caused us so much trouble and, well, yeah.
Yes. This was not covered by my training manuals.
That does not look like any plant I've ever seen. This may be problematic.
Yeah, this is a little bit of an issue, but you know what? Pitter patter. The Thorian will spit out copies of this Asari that he uses to communicate with us and later fight us after we can't come to a peaceful solution. You'll battle all the way around the thing, chipping away at its supports and killing creepers and the Asari over and over. It really escalates in difficulty as you climb, but there's nothing to be done other than dump grenades and lead into the growing mass of enemies before you. Eventually, Shepard and his team will do enough damage to drop the Thorian down a hole, killing it, and thankfully the Asari, Shiala, that it was cloning is able to climb out of her little wall thing, whatever, and talk to us. We learn more about what Saren was doing here, after ancient knowledge only the Thorian could have because of its age in the form of what they would call the Cipher. It's essentially an understanding of what it was like to be a Prothean in their empire and show us how their mind worked, allowing us to actually understand the beacons. Shiala is able to pass the Cipher on to Shepard as she did with Saren. BioWare really would succeed in bringing a cinematic flair to the universe in later titles, but they certainly didn't have it all figured out here because what is this? They look like me trying to figure out how to English after I've been up for 30 hours and someone is asking me what the color blue smells like. This whole conversation is just odd and makes me want to leave. This will more or less mark the end of our time on Pharos. Shiala will elect to stay and help the colonists rebuild. The colonists are grateful for us not killing them and sorry they shot at us. And with the work we did in the tunnels earlier, they should have a fighting chance going forward. All good. We head back to the Normandy for a debrief with the team. Shepard is still piecing everything together he gained from the Cipher and the beacon, so Liara offers to link her mind with Shepard in order to help him make sense of everything that's sitting in his head. It turns out it's mostly fragmented and there's definitely missing data. We agree to get back to this later after she's recovered from the experience. End the meeting and call up the council to give them an update on the situation, in which they're mostly just annoying, if I'm honest. After you complete either Pharos or Noveria, you'll be hailed by the council who will share some interesting news with you. One of their teams out in the Traverse investigating Saren have sent what appears to be a distress signal from a facility on the planet Vermeer. They don't have a lot of information for us to go on, but leave it up to us on whether to investigate. The mission isn't actually time sensitive, but it does feel like it is and happens to be the mission that arguably pushed the game into all-time great territory, so let's talk about it. There's heavy anti-air capabilities from Saren's facilities when we get there, so Joker will drop us in the Mako so we can clear the path ahead. Just dropping in on Vermeer feels so unique compared to the rest of the game. Pharos is kind of dirty everywhere you go and often cramped. Noveria feels cold and inhospitable. The Citadel is very, very cool, but it's still a space station, meaning there's limits to how comfortable you can be there. But Vermeer is the beautiful open-world paradise that just feels so warm and enjoyable. Even as you travel across it in an APC, running over wildlife and getting into gunfights with the synthetic race hellbent on destroying all life in the universe. Once we lower the AA defenses, we can meet the rest of the team at the Solarian camp and find out the situation's far more dire than we had envisioned. Time for a Mass Effect history lesson. Just to be clear on where we stand, this is a Krogan, this is a Turian, and this is a Solarian. Now, way back when the Krogan were still a primitive species, they lived on their homeworld of Tuchanka, which is kind of like Space Australia, where everything is trying to kill you. So the Krogan evolved with their planet to become a culture that knew only conflict. But then, as they gained access to nuclear weapons, they all started fighting each other instead, and quite literally nuked themselves back to the Stone Age. That led to generations of warfare as they fought for what was left of their planet. It made day-to-day life a struggle, but it also hardened them into a brutal fighting force. So when the Rachni, who we'll talk about more in a little bit, stormed across the galaxy kicking the crap out of every species in their path, the Council races searched for help. As a result, the Solarians turned to the Krogan, artificially uplifting them and moving them forward technologically by centuries. Their talent for never-ending warfare and explosive rate of reproduction meant that with these new weapons in their hands, they were able to turn the tides in the Rachni Wars, eradicating them entirely and essentially saving the galaxy, which is why you see a statue of a Krogan on the Presidium. Then the solution became the problem. You took an entire species who had known nothing but conflict for millennia, gave them weapons needed to fight across the galaxy, then gave them hundreds of years of war to fight and prove their worth. Then when the war was over, I guess the Turians and Solarians expected them to just say, hey, thanks, I'm gonna head home, but of course not. They wanted their spoils, their piece of the pie. And when that wasn't given to them, they decided to take it for themselves, declaring war on the rest of the universe. And they were winning. The Krogan Rebellion, as it would go on to be called, pushed the Turians and Solarians into desperation as they saw the inevitable collapse of their empires under the weight of the Krogan forces. So the Solarians would go on to create what would be called the Genophage, rewriting Krogan genetic code at the base level so that for every 1,000 Krogan children born, only one would be left alive. They weren't sure about their new weapon, but the Turians had less reservations deploying it against their foes. This would go on to cripple the Krogan, which ended the war, but would go on to essentially destroy them as a species, left yet again to fight each other for the scraps they had available to themselves. Over time, it would go on to reduce the Krogan to a little more than warring clans fighting over fertile women and a whole lot of mercenaries fighting all over the galaxy just to try to find a way to survive. Just like Rex, who cares deeply for his people but was forced away from his home, destined to travel the galaxy in search of a life, but never giving up hope for a Krogan future. So now the bad news. Saren, who is a threat to the galaxy, has used this facility to cure the Genophage and is growing a Krogan army. Well, the answer for most of us is simple. The facility has to be destroyed. However, Rex is going to have something to say about that.
Exactly my thoughts. We must ensure that this facility and its secrets are destroyed.
Destroyed? I don't think so. Our people are dying. This cure can save them.
If that cure leaves this planet, the Krogan will become unstoppable. We can't make the same mistake again.
We are not a mistake.
He's not unreasonable. He's looking at a new life not just for himself, not just for his family, but an entire race of people. Billions of lives hang in the balance based on what we do today, and we're asking him to let his people die, telling him it's for the greater good. This is a pivotal moment in the series, and how you handle it will affect not just this moment, but quite a lot later. Shepard can be ruthless if you need him to be, willing to put Rex down on the spot. I, however, do care for Rex and know that he's smart enough to be won over, but it's certainly tense. Whether or not he knows it, Rex is the future for the Krogan, and keeping him alive will be far more important than either of you could know in this moment. With this dealt with, we return to Captain Kirrahe and discuss how our little group is going to take down an entire base. The plan is desperate, but it's all we've got. The Solarians have converted their ship's drive core into a nuke, and we're going to assault the facility and place it in the middle. The STG members will lead a frontal assault while we sneak in the back and lower the defenses so Normandy can bring in the bomb. It's going to be tough, but it's only going to get worse as we need to send either Caden or Ashley with the Solarians in order to bolster their ranks. It doesn't really matter who you send, but it's tough to send one of your own people on a risky maneuver like this. With the plan decided, we can get ready to roll out, but before we do it, it won't be Shepard giving the speeches today, it'll be Captain Kirrahe, and he delivers on this moment with grace.
You all know the mission and what is at stake. I have come to trust each of you with my life, but I have also heard murmurs of discontent. I share your concerns. We are trained for espionage. We would be legends, but the records are sealed. Glorying in battle is not our way. Think of our heroes. The Silent Step, who defeated a nation with a single shot. Or the Ever Alert, who kept armies at bay with hidden facts. These giants do not seem to give us solace here, but they are not all that we are. Before the network, there was the fleet. Before diplomacy, there were soldiers. Our influence stopped the Rachni, but before that, we held the line. Our influence stopped the Krogan, but before that, we held the line. Our influence will stop Saren. In the battle today, we will hold the line.
It's not overtly stated, but you can actually help keep Kirrahe's team alive as you work your way to the back of the facility. Listen for radio calls about problems the team is facing. You'll be able to help them out from where you are, disrupting communications, breaking a satellite link, and taking down a squad of flyers. If you do all of this, Kirrahe will be alive at the end of the mission. However, this won't really have any meaning until Mass Effect 3, which in itself is cool. Push forward until we get to the facility in which we will find the labs, and down in the pit we can talk to an imprisoned Solarian named Private Savada, who was originally part of Kirrahe's team. There's something off about him, all of them actually, but you can't just leave them here, so you open the cells to be attacked by those who you just freed. It's unfortunate, but there's no choice other than to beat them and carry on. Deep in the facility we find Ranathanopoulos, who is one of the researchers here. And this is a very important conversation, but I just can't get over this intro.
I'm not going to hurt you. Who are you?
I can't decide what's funnier, the thought that Garrus is like, what do you mean we're not going to hurt her? We're here to nuke this place. Or just that he's disappointed we're not going to hurt her. Anyway, we learned the facility was set up to study the effects of indoctrination. You see, Saren's ship emits a signal that, given enough exposure, will force those affected to succumb to the will of the ship. Shepard assumes it's Saren, and while it's true that the signal currently makes them obey Saren, they learn that he's not in control of it and may be a victim of indoctrination himself. You see, this entire time it's been assumed that the ship was made by the Geth in order to serve Saren and the Reapers, but as we'll learn in the next room, it's not the product of the Reapers. It is a Reaper.
Rudimentary creatures of blood and flesh. You touch my mind, fumbling in ignorance, incapable of understanding.
I don't think this is a VI.
There is a realm of existence so far beyond your own, you cannot even imagine it. I am beyond your comprehension. I am sovereign.
Sovereign gives me chills to this day. Something about the voice, the timeless feel it has, how it looks down on life.
Organic life is nothing but a genetic mutation. An accident. Your lives are measured in years and decades. You wither and die. We are eternal.
In this moment, we will learn that our entire understanding of life is a lie. We aren't walking on the remains of the Protheans. It's the Reapers who built the mass relays in the Citadel, leaving behind their technology so that life would follow the path they want before returning to harvest us and begin again. We thought Saren was working with the Reapers to usher in the return, but it's so much worse than that. Sovereign means possessing supreme or unlimited power, and he couldn't be more aptly named, as we would go on to see that by itself he was able to grow an army large enough to challenge the mightiest of the galaxy. If this is what one Reaper is capable of, what chance do we have when all of them arrive? He then drops one of the most bone-chilling lines I've ever heard.
We impose order on the chaos of organic evolution. You exist because we allow it, and you will end because we demand it.
When we've gotten all we can out of Sovereign, it will be time to head down to the breeding facility and set the nuke, but we're given bad news as the Solarian squad with your team member in it is about to get overrun, so we head out to help them as quick as we can. Then it gets worse. Reinforcements have been sent to the bomb site as well. There's no time to save both of them, and you'll have to make a choice. Either Ashley or Caden will die in this moment, and that choice will lie with you. Sadly, it doesn't really matter who you pick, and it really comes down to personal preference, but I do have some opinions on the subject. Should you save the lover boy, who's always willing to put others first and is open to all comers despite a painful past that would give him reason to be guarded and distrustful? Or is the one who's like, I don't trust aliens? Tough choice. Regardless of whether you choose to allow a good man in Caden to fall in battle defending a cause he believed in, or let Ashley die, it has to be said that both take it in good spirits, dying with no hard feelings.
I'm sorry, Ash. I had to make a choice.
I understand, Commander. I don't regret a thing.
Whichever path you take, it will lead you to a confrontation with Saren. He makes his case. We've both seen the visions. We both know what happened to the last people who tried to fight back against the Reapers. They were wiped out. He argues that the only way for us to survive is to fight our own nature as people and allow ourselves to be ruled. He asks the big question.
But what if they had bowed before the invaders? Would the Protheans still exist? Is submission not preferable to extinction?
This is the big moment in Mass Effect, one that I look at differently now after spending so much time with Cyberpunk. In another story, you might have been given the option to agree with him. Isn't that the whole point of the game? Choice? It is. But to join the Reapers could never have been a real option, and I'll tell you why. The obvious logical reason is that they had a trilogy plan and it would have been pretty lame if you ended all life in the first game. But that's not the right reason. The right reason is that to be human is to fight. It's to stand up to those who would oppress us. It's to never give up. Sovereign has made it clear that we will die because that's what the Reapers want. There is no saving our species, only prolonging our final days. Just like how Fidan didn't have any choice other than the one he took, Shepard has no choice other than to fight. That's all he's capable of doing. We have two Spectres, two warriors who were both given the same visions, the same warning, and we just happen to be following the one who chose to stand against the impossible odds, while we battle against the one who would allow fear to guide him. We'll learn more about what drove Saren to Sovereign later, but for now, all we can do is show him what humanity is all about. We may not always be the biggest dog in the fight, but we'll always give it our all. Back in the Normandy, whoever survived will be taking the loss of our companion hard, but you can do your best to take the weight off their shoulders. Liara will step in to suggest merging our minds once again to see if the new pieces from the beacon we found on Vermeer, we can see the entire message. It turns out we can, and it's a warning along with the location of the conduit on a lost planet called Ilos. Unfortunately, there's no way of knowing how to find Ilos. We will simply have to pursue other leads in the meantime. Give the council a call again and argue with them about the reality of the situation, or just hang up on them. Either way. Our last lead is the planet of Novaria, where we will have reports that Matriarch Benezia has been spotted. I'd recommend bringing Liara for this mission for the emotional impact, but it's entirely your choice. Rex is also hilarious, but if you bring them both and you're not playing a class with decryption, you'll miss out on some in-game stuff. We're stopped at the door by security who are willing to allow us access to the facility, but try to demand we give up our weapons, which just isn't an option. It's a tense standoff, but once they confirm Shepard's identity as a Spectre, we're cleared to go through by Miss Parsini, assistant to Administrator Annaleus. You can venture around the complex, shopping, doing some minor smuggling, stealing some info, whatever. Eventually, though, you will need to go see Annaleus about getting up to Peak 15, which is where Benezia is located. He will inform us that there's a blizzard blocking access to the transport and refuses us garage access to drive, so we'll have to find another way. Miss Parsini will clue us into the fact that there's a Turian on the station named Laurent Keene, who might be able to help us out with a garage pass. We find out he's being harassed by Annaleus, who is currently having his corrupt security guards ransack Keene's office in search of the proof he has compiled about Annaleus' corruption. In exchange for retrieving the data from his office, he's prepared to offer us up a garage pass. This isn't actually the only path to getting into the garage, but I do feel like it's the path most players will end up taking, and it's the only one I've ever bothered with. Fight through some security before retrieving the data, and on the way out, we'll be stopped by Miss Sterling, who tries to stand on the morally high ground of, oh, you killed the cops, and I'm like, okay, but they're dirty cops on the take ransacking someone's office for fucking blackmail information, so who cares? Before we can get back to Keene, we'll find Miss Parsini waiting for us, who reveals she's an undercover from Novaria Internal Affairs investigating the corruption here. She requests that we get Keene to testify against Annaleus with the evidence we just obtained so that she can take him down. You don't have to, but that guy's an asshole, so I do, and we can watch him being hauled out in exchange for the garage pass we need. This is where Novaria really starts as we take our Mako across a frozen mountain path, battling the Geth the whole way through. The situation shifts, however, when we encounter a new enemy. Remember when I told you about the Rachni that stormed across the galaxy for centuries before finally being pushed back over the span of a 220-year Krogan comeback until they were eventually wiped out, saving everyone from their reign of terror? Yeah, well, some dumbfuck idiot here on Peak 15 found one and decided to bring them back for some unknown stupid dumb idiot reason. So that serves as a new fun problem to solve, but first we'll have to fix the transport system to get back up to the labs by first solving a logic puzzle and then getting some other systems back online. When we get back to the labs, the whole situation is a mess. What's left of the guards are spread thin on little to no rest, fighting back waves of Rachni. There's also a bunch of infected people with a doctor who isn't allowed to go put together a cure, one very traumatized doctor, and God knows what else. One step at a time, we get permission to go into the quarantine zone and make the cure, but then we are ambushed by an Asari sleeper agent left behind by Benezia, which will cost the life of one of the guards, which is just great. But whatever. Help out the doctor and use his access to get into the maintenance area, which will connect us to the lab Benezia is in. She has some tense words with Liara, who is clearly appalled by whatever her mother has become in this moment. Benezia is sold to us as this all-powerful being, but we literally exhaust her by making her open 4 different doors, and I have to be honest, it's utterly disappointing as a boss fight. When we speak to her again, we get a better idea of what's going on as she breaks through Sovereign's indoctrination for but a moment. We learn that she initially saw the danger of Saren and attempted to stop him, but was won over by the indoctrination and forced to work with him. She uses this lapse in control to tell us that she was able to recover the location of the Mu relay from the Rachni Queen, which will lead us to Ilos and is able to give us that information. As she warned us was possible, Benezia will turn on us again and will be forced to kill her, which leads to a genuinely touching death scene for her, even if the voice acting isn't incredible.
Mother. Good night, little wing. I will see you again with the dawn. No lie. They always said there would be a...
In an interesting turn of events, we'll end up speaking to the Rachni Queen through a nearby Asari body she takes control of. She tells us that the Rachni children they took from her have been corrupted and there's no hope for them, needing to be killed, but she asks that she be set free. She states that she has no intention of fighting us, promising to disappear and never be seen again, living a life of peace. This is another one of those major story decisions that will come back later on. It will complicate my life in Mass Effect 3, but I won't end the chance for an entire species to live, especially not one that wants to live in peace. The other Rachni, though, will have to be dealt with like it or not, so we head down to the hot labs to end the threat to Peak 15. A lone surviving scientist will inform us that to kill them, the best thing we can do is activate the neutron purge. Unfortunately, he's rudely interrupted before he can input the passphrase to do so. We open up the mirror terminal, but I wouldn't recommend trying to fake your way through this check, as she doesn't find it very funny.
Sic semper
That is not the correct code. Please report to security for arrest and interrogation.
Activate the Purge and watch as your minimap turns into a sea of red. It seems that you may have ruffled a few feathers with this one. Back on the ship, however, we have everything we need to stop Saren with his destination and his way to get there all figured out, so we're ordered to report back to the Council, who are assembling their fleet. And yet again, they don't take us as seriously as they should, grounding the Normandy and telling us to sit tight and let Saren come to us. We're stuck, but just like the last time the Council refused to act, Shepard isn't going to let this stop him as we get a message to meet Captain Anderson down at Flux, a club in the wards. The captain believes in us and has a bold plan, telling us to get aboard the Normandy and he will move to disable the lock on the ship. He has two options to go with, but lets us choose which path he takes. Either going straight through CSEC, which is super badass of him and should honestly be commended, but you do get the expected outcome of attacking the security station. Don't worry, he lives, but that's still a big ouchie. The other better option is to send him to Adina's office to remove the lockdown from his personal terminal. This is far more satisfying and doesn't lead to our man getting shot. With the lockdown lifted, you can technically do anything you want because you'll be locked out from side content after you head to Ilos, so you probably should do everything, but for the sake of the flow of the story section, we'll just head over to Ilos. When we're on our way to Ilos, Shepard's love interest, assuming you've talked to people long enough to have one, will join him in his cabin, but I am way too close to monetizing this channel to show a PG-13 sex scene, so we're moving on. Subscribe, by the way. Right from the word go, this mission is sketchy as hell, but with some mocap and voice acting that makes it more comical than dramatic. Essentially, there's nowhere to drop us close enough to catch Saren. Even with the drop in the Mako, Presley states we need at least 100 meters for a safe landing, but he can't find us more than 20. The team descends into a comical argument before Joker puts an end to it.
There is no other landing zone!
The descent angle's too steep. It's our only option.
It's not an option, it's a suicide run. We don't...
I can do it.
Joker?
I can do it.
Look, I'll speak more on it as we go through the games, but you know what? I'm saying it. Seth Green is the best damn voice actor in Mass Effect. Nobody comes close. Joker may have dropped us right on Saren's head, but we'll still have to backtrack and find a way to open these blast doors. Even though it's actually pretty linear and you have a map, I always end up lost on Ilos. Everything just looks the damn same, although it does boast one of the best songs in the franchise. With the doors open, climb into the Mako and descend into the massive Prothean facility, fighting through the Geth Saren left behind before getting caught in some kind of kinetic barrier. With no choice but to investigate, the team will head down to the path that's available to us and find something incredible. A working Prothean VI by the name of Vigil. He detected we weren't indoctrinated like Saren and chose to help us, seeing that we might be the galaxy's only chance. He shares a lot of information with us about the history of the Protheans and the Reapers, including how the Reapers came for them and their last act of rebellion as a species. We already knew that the Reapers built the Citadel, but what Vigil tells us is that it's a trap. Acting as a dormant mass relay, the Reapers used to launch their invasion of the universe, pouring through and decimating the leadership of the current cycle before anyone knows what's going on. That's what happened to the Protheans, and they fought on the back foot from day one, eventually having to admit their defeat was inevitable, so they set up this facility on Ilos. The original intention was to wait out the invasion, but the eradication of an entire species is a slow process, and over time the life pods would be deactivated one by one to preserve power for the rest of the facility. When the Reapers finally left, only the top scientists remained alive. Knowing they would never be able to save their empire with so few of them left, they set to work doing the only thing they could, attempting to save those who would come next. They built the conduit, which acted as a one-way portal to the Citadel. From there, they went on to work on preventing its use in the next cycle, preventing the relay from opening when the Reapers sent the signal, which they hoped would give those who followed them a chance. This last act of defiance would go on to be the one glimmer of hope we are now clinging to. Vigil gives us a data packet that will allow us to take over the Citadel when we get there, enabling us to undo whatever Saren has done and stop Sovereign. As we look down the ramp of the conduit, the battle for the Citadel will begin as Sovereign will reveal his true power alongside his Geth fleets. We make the jump onto the Citadel, and once again the chase is on as we will follow Saren to the top of the tower where the control panel can be found. They remastered these cutscenes for Legendary Edition. I have to say, they nailed it. The difference is night and day. When we're locked out of the elevator, we'll throw on the mag boots and make the climb through increasingly powerful Geth forces supplemented by Krogan, who remain deadly on the charge. It's a spectacular scene to look up and get our first real perspective on just how massive Sovereign really is. Over 1.86 miles tall, if I remember correctly, or 3 kilometers in haven't been to the moon units. This will lead us to the final confrontation with Saren, who reveals he's gotten some upgrades after letting Sovereign implant him. It doesn't seem like there's a way to talk this out when you first listen to Saren. He just sounds too deeply indoctrinated, but if your will is strong enough, you can break through to the man he was underneath. I know these moments in Mass Effect are always seen as, oh, choose the colored dialogue options and boom, you win, which I'll admit is true to a degree. But to me, this moment means more than that. We were fighting Saren because we thought he gave up. We thought he didn't want to fight, but we know that's not the only possibility now. Private Savada wanted to fight. Benezia wanted to do the right thing. But Sovereign has proven to just be too much for the mind of us mere mortals, reshaping the very being of a person into who he wants them to be. Who knows what Saren really wanted in the beginning? Maybe he thought he could stop this threat and realized too late how grave the reality truly was. Shepard, however, is true of heart and willing to stand up to any evil, and maybe that's what allows him to speak to these people. What was that quote?
And as we let our own light shine, we unconsciously give other people permission to do the same, as we are liberated from our own fear. Our presence automatically liberates others.
Shepard stands tall as a beacon of hope, allowing for the redemption of those thought to be beyond saving, seeing the good in everyone, even those who can't see it in themselves. With this, we use Vigil's disc and take control of the station and stand ready to open the arms before we read a distress call. The Citadel Fleet's flagship, the Destiny Ascension, is calling for help, having been heavily damaged in the battle with the Council on board. We manage to reach the Joker, who's standing by with the Alliance fleet, ready to lend support and take on Sovereign. It's pointed out that if we call them in now, there will be heavy losses on the human side while they battle outside the Citadel waiting for the arms to open, rather than when they can hit Sovereign directly. You can play it either way you like, but we're choosing to save the Council here as I think it just makes the most sense.
Alliance ships, move in. Save the Destiny Ascension.
Commander, we're picking up reinforcements. It's the Alliance. Thank the goddess.
Man, this scene gets me every time. Mass Effect 1 may not be the pinnacle of the series for me, but this moment is right at the top. The battle isn't over quite yet, though, as while the fleet handles Sovereign, we will have problems of our own. Saren, the man, may have died redeemed, but Sovereign's will lived on inside him, and we'll have to battle the physical manifestation of our enemy's desires. The fight isn't spectacular, with it just being a reskinned guest stalker with better stats, but I guess the devs probably thought the game wouldn't feel right without some kind of boss battle. Our battle in here would go on to mirror the battle happening above us. As we finish off our enemy down here, the Normandy would land the killing blow upon Sovereign. The story wraps up here pretty quickly as we go on to choose a representative to join the Council on behalf of humanity, before Shepard will declare that this is only the beginning. The Reapers are coming, and there's work to be done. The campaign of Mass Effect 1 certainly isn't the pinnacle of the series by any means, but my god, what they managed to achieve in a freshman outing is nothing short of incredible. They would go on to do spectacular things with this framework in future titles, but one of my favorite parts of the series is something they established so well here in the first game. It's that there's always another truth out there. We will relearn the history of the galaxy more than once over the course of these games, and that's established here in the first title. We're introduced to a whole world through our initial conversations in the Codex, then we speak to Sovereign and find out what really happened in our past, and then we meet Vigil on Ilos and discover that even the Almighty Reapers don't know everything. Mass Effect is truly more than the sum of its parts, but on that note, we have a few more parts to discuss before we're done here, so let's talk about what I left out before we can get to the wrap-up. It's clear that world building and the narrative were the focus in the first game, which makes a lot of sense, but regardless of the fact that they had a good reason, the side content in Mass Effect 1 is still poor as a result. There's interesting stories here, at least to some extent, however playing through them will feel like a slog for two major reasons. The first is the well-known issue of reused assets. The team at BioWare simply didn't have the time to create unique environments for us to play through across these planets, so the vast majority of areas you fight through will be the slightly different combinations of the same walls, boxes, and doors in the same couple of buildings against the same couple of enemies, and it doesn't really matter why you're doing it after a while. On paper, is it super cool to have Garrus tell you the story of the one who got away while he worked at CSEC? A Solarian doctor who was using people as test tubes to grow and harvest organs out of, who ended up running before he was caught? Yeah, that's a very cool story, but it's just another trek through the interior of a ship with gray walls. How about going after Rex's family armor, which is being kept away by some collector on a remote base? Yeah, there's some personal stakes in that to make it endearing. Fighting through the same building you've seen before to then get a pop-up about it, however, is not. Killing a powerful woman's sister for her to help her cover up her criminal past, rooting out a crime ring and their leaders, finding a man's missing brother out in the vast and dangerous reaches of space, uncovering a Cerberus plot and chasing the shadowy organization through the galaxy, uncovering their misdeeds, more than one hostage situation, shutting down a rogue VI on an alliance base, or helping out with a biotic cult. These all seem great when I just talk about them, but I'd challenge even veterans of the series to tell me which of these buildings belong to which of these missions. And that would all be fine, honestly. There's nothing wrong with side content for people who just want to explore it, but there's one major problem. It's that you have to do it if you want to do it. Let me explain. When you complete the final mission, that's it. You're done. No going back to finish anything else without reloading a save from before the journey to Ilos. So instead of going through this stuff at your leisure on your own time after the main plot or whenever you want to do it, you're forced to grind through it before the story ends if you want to see it, and that's what makes it feel like a job and brings it down tremendously. Especially if you know there are missions that will connect to later games and you want them as part of your save file going forwards. Don't get me wrong, it's not all bad. The mission on Luna to turn off that rogue VI isn't particularly fun, but it is interesting to watch as it gets more desperate to defend itself the more you progress. And it was pretty cool that in its final moments it spit out a painful message in binary. Chasing a true AI from one part of the Citadel to the other, terminal to terminal, is also interesting in its own little way. And then you have Conrad Werner, also known as Shepard's biggest fan, who is creepy yet endearing and worth talking to, as he will become a series regular if you interact with him here. And I mean, I certainly didn't expect this damn Thresher mod to come ripping out of the ground the first time I landed on this planet. There's also one mission tied to each of the life paths that will have unique dialogue if you have the right history to interact with it. It's not pointed out, it just exists for you to find, and that's cool. I mean no ill will towards those who worked on these missions, as they truly seem to care, but were limited. And to their credit, side content would get a massive upgrade in the next entries, as we'll talk about next time. For now though, let's talk about something they got right from day one.
You are not Prothean, but you are not machine either. This eventuality was one of many that was anticipated. This is why we sent our warning through the beacons.
I love the music in Mass Effect, so much so that it adorns my walls and I listen to it consistently. And that's all thanks to the labors of the team behind it, notably Jack Wall and Sam Hulick. I've argued that music would have to try very, very hard to break a game, but with the right touch it can elevate it from something great to something timeless. I don't really know anything about making music, so if you want someone to tell you about composition or implementation, what instruments they used, or why that was genius, I'm just not your guy. However, I am confident in my ability to tell you that some songs are just perfect in a given moment. When the main track hits, it's undeniably Mass Effect. It defines what the world is in a way that just feels downright special. Every fan of these games will know the sound of the Normandy when they hear it. Then there's Saren's own theme, one that feels villainous, making the hairs on your neck stand up when it plays. The Citadel brings the wonders of space to the forefront of your mind, making you feel as though you're peering into a whole new world full of adventure. The galaxy map does much of the same, making you feel at home every time I hear it. Last, but certainly not least, is Vigil, the track people point to when they want to show you an example of how great music and gaming can be. It's fantastic all on its own and becomes perfect when used in the game. It's making my heart beat just listen to it now. The music in Mass Effect stands with the all-time greats, and it only gets better as you get deeper into the series. Even if you never play these games, you should absolutely give these tracks a listen. Now let's go talk about the last piece to the puzzle.
Hello. I heard your transmission. Can you hear me? They haven't found me yet, but I can't talk long. Shut down the fusion torches. I'm going to die. God.
So while it doesn't make a ton of sense for this video, I'm ending with DLC because I like consistent formatting across videos, and it's the best way to end both games 2 and 3. Here's the thing. I think Mass Effect has some of the best DLC in any game series ever, only beaten out by the likes of CD Projekt Red. But they hadn't quite figured it out yet in this entry. It's not all bad, but we should start by talking about this thing. The DLC so bad they literally lost it and it couldn't be included in Legendary Edition, but it was alright because nobody cared. This is the poster child for bad DLC, and we're not going to talk about it. Anyway, Bring Down the Sky was the second and final DLC released for Mass Effect 1, and it was significantly better. You are sent to an asteroid that's been taken over by the Batarians, and it's hurtling towards the human colony on Terra Nova. It's interesting because Shepard is a player character to some extent, but only moving forward. He still has his own past, and that's reflected here. You can show care and love to just about everyone you meet for the first time, with one exception. In fairness, they were watching their Varen eat a guy, so, you know. We're guided through the asteroid by a woman by the name of Kate Bowman, an engineer here on X-57 who managed to hide from the Batarians at least at the start of the mission. It's a fun way to spend an hour as you'll be guided through unique challenges like a minefield as you shut down the 3 fusion torches propelling the asteroid towards the planet. And as promised, regardless of Shepard's past, you'll get the chance to influence who he is today, as at the last torch you'll be asked to talk by some of the Batarians who say they wanted no part in this madness, thinking it was a simple job. However, the simple job they thought they were signing up for was a slave grab, so they were never the good guys. It simultaneously justifies the human general dislike of Batarians while allowing you to stand upon a moral high ground if you so wish. We also get another moral dilemma when we turn off all the torches and move to save the hostages in the main facility. The leader of the attack, who is named Balak and has some rather extreme views, blaming humanity for the galaxy looking down upon the Batarian people as a whole. It wasn't the war they started with us and then lost! It wasn't the constant pursuit of slavery, no, none of that. It was our fault, okay? And the only solution, of course, is to kill a whole planet full of innocent people. Balak is an asshole, but he's got me caught here as he leaves bombs by the hostages and forces me to let him go in order to save them. Don't worry though, we'll catch up to him eventually. Save the hostages and that'll wrap up Bring Down the Sky, a solid bit of gameplay and storytelling which is, I believe, our first introduction to Batarians. It was a solid buy back in the day and is a no-brainer since it's included in Legendary Edition. Anyways, let's wrap up. There's plenty of low spots in Mass Effect, and they're all fair criticism, from the uninspired gameplay to repetitive side content and a terrible attempt at a first DLC. However, the highs touch the peaks of gaming as a whole. Traveling across the galaxy in search of lost truths and a way to save the galaxy is an adventure of a lifetime, especially as you learn more and more about the lost truths of the universe. Uncovering the proof of the Reapers only for those with the power to help choosing not to believe you, having to fight to save a system that doesn't want our help is frustrating, but for all the right reasons. Then we get into the moral dilemmas, almost all of them involving someone's life on the line. We're asked over and over again if intentions justify actions, and we're asked again and again to make that choice. The colonists of Zeus Hope don't want to fight you, they don't want to do anything but be left alone, however they're compelled to fire upon you by forces beyond their control. You risk your own life by trying to keep them alive. Then we have Vermeer, where we're not the only ones asked to make a choice. We have to look Rex in the eye and ask him to choose to give up hope for his entire species for the greater good. That's not something that can be done lightly. Later on, you'll be given a harder decision, not asked to choose between right and wrong, simply asked to let somebody die. The hardest choices are the ones with no right answer, and this is one of them. We can still look back and say, yes, Benezia had to be stopped, but in the end, Liara would still go on to lose her mother. Saren had to die, but in his final moments, we would see that he was more than the monster we saw him as. Maybe not a good person, but maybe he was just a person who had lost his way. Maybe without Sovereign controlling him, Saren could have been saved. We would go on to lose Jenkins, Nihilus, Fidan, Benezia, a member of our team, maybe two, and many other innocents in search of survival fighting for the right to carry on. To look back on how much we lost just for the chance to start this war. Remember, Shepard had lost here. Everything would have been doomed before it started. It really goes on to set the tone for how bad the battles to come would be. And we're going to carry that into Mass Effect 2 in our next video. For now, though, that's the end of this journey, and I'm glad you're still here at the end with me so I can say thank you. If you haven't already, do me a huge favor and subscribe. It's a massive help. Other than that, I'll have new content for you as soon and as often as I can. This is Purple, signing off. Have a wonderful night, and always remember to smile. Thanks, guys.
We impose order on the chaos of organic evolution. You exist because we allow it.